July, a gas pipeline was blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Wow, holy shit. France, the SBU carried out a special operation Web 2. They destroyed locomotives with hundreds of tanks and dozens of pieces of equipment. A factory, really? I mean, a factory? A factory. Look at that. We're screwed. God, SBU, don't stop! Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. An oil refinery is burning in Russian Kstovo. A drone just now near Kistovo, Ukroil.
Damn, it's really huge.
Look, it's going over there. What a massive ship. Significant and coordinated attacks have now commenced against Russia's strategically important Northern Fleet, its vast Pacific Fleet, and its historically significant Black Sea Fleet. The SBU and the Ukrainian armed forces are attacking military airfields, nuclear submarines, and the Russian Navy. Everything is on fire.
It's sinking as they're towing it.
Oil depot. No Russian fleet can hide from Malyuk's and the SBU's naval drones. We'll discuss all of this with top analyst Oleksandr Demchenko right now. The special operation by the Ukrainian armed forces, SBU and GUR continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow, with Western Siberia under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. Last night, the oil refinery in Russia's Kstovo was burning and is still burning. There are massive explosions and fires there. This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow. Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with a secret superweapon missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg. And this is only the beginning. Nights in Russia are like a war zone. A second UAV has arrived. A lot of them are flying toward the city. It hit right on target there. Oh, the second one. Take that. Really? Is that a drone, huh? That's it. Now the third one is on fire. We have top analyst Oleksandr Demchenko with us. Sasha, hello.
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, so here are the top news stories. The Germans said that the missiles will arrive any day now and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg. A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up and submarines have been attacked. I've read them. The most interesting news, what I liked, a symbolic collapse the Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, might be decommissioned and scrapped. What do you think?
I'll say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We're at the very start of this path. For Putin, of course, August will be a black month, an absolutely black month. I told you last time, August is the end for him, he's done for. Just look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got their headline right. The cover says, "Choked Putin ruined everything." Putin screwed up and made a mess for himself. You see, right there in the Kremlin, in the bio toilet. What am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be massive attacks on Russia, especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get those missiles, and there will be strikes. But the most important thing, Dasha, and most likely, is that Trump has decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin. Just now, the news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen asset. Trump will start, and Europe will continue. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely Trump will give Ukraine, or has already given Ukraine attention, has already given Ukraine the green light to strike Moscow, to hit decision-making centers with missiles. Now, out of nowhere, Patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany. 3 units. Interesting. And who gave permission? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will hand over long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a long time, for a very long time, were prohibited. Attention. And who gave the green light for this, if not Washington? That's why Putin is now in for a series of the harshest surprises. The Ukrainian armed forces have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who destroyed that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life that image of the burnt crib. It will always be before my eyes. All those people who killed have already gotten what they deserve. Now, there will be a very tough response for absolutely everything, because this past week has shown every Trump in the White House, all of Washington, and the Europeans that it's time to put an end to Putin. It's time to finish with Putin. The fact that Siberia is burning right now, that gas pipelines are exploding there, what does that mean? They supply military units, they supply military factories. We need to explain what these pipelines are. They are the lines that supply gas production, which directly powers Russia's defense enterprises. They have been blown up. This is ours. This is us. Just how far do you have to lose your mind and mess things up for the whole of Siberia to be burning again? Not for the first time. For there to be a NATO base in Azerbaijan, for there to be NATO bases in Finland, for there to be British and French armies in Ukraine, and for the armies of 28 NATO member countries to enter Ukraine after the ceasefire, which they are being forcibly pushed over. Well, you see, when I look at this, I simply have this realization. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is just handing over his country to America, or there will be a coup in the Kremlin in the near future, maybe even starting in August. Because no one has ever given away Russia the way he is giving away Russia. No one has ever given away Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. If NATO, look, Putin fought to keep NATO bases away from Russia's borders so that the minimum flight time to Russia would be 7 minutes. Now it's already just 2 minutes flight time to Russia. NATO troops are already right on Russia's borders. The NATO army is already practically stationed near St. Petersburg. It has surrounded it. Do you understand? They're putting St. Petersburg under encirclement, under blockade. So what? And what then? So I think that in August, we are facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, the beginning of a major economic crisis. We're not only facing Trump's rampage, who will force Putin to bend over into a very indecent and unpleasant position, bent in half into the zoo pose, but we are also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis in the Russian Federation. I think a coup d'etat, maybe even a military one by a junta, is not far off.
I'm curious, Sasha, and our audience, give this video a like and write in the comments who you think will carry out this military coup. Like, comment, let's go. Sasha, who is even capable of this mission impossible of pulling this off?
I almost said Vladimir Rodolfovich Solovyov. Lately, he's been talking about Trump's slip quite a lot. He has some very strange fantasies. I don't know, Dasha, do you ever dream about Trump's slip? Personally, I don't know why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about it. He needs to be dreaming about Putin's ass and his lips. But there are Trump's lips. There are some really strange fantasies going on there. But by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Malyuk, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He's supposed to wake up and destroy their main boss, the head of the mafia, Putin. Seriously, though, if we're being serious, what we've seen lately, I mean, the murder of Starovot, the Minister of Transport in Russia.
Yes.
This has changed everything completely. Now the Kemezov clan is going to be under attack, actually. They're already under attack. This whole story with the wreath, when Putin supposedly sent a wreath, Rhode Island and Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. RIA Novosti deleted the report, and Peskov with a straight face said Putin didn't send anything. And 9 officials, led by Chemezov, 9 ministers, with Chemezov, the head of Rostec, until recently one of Putin's closest allies showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow to their clan, to Chemezov's clan, to the clan of Datsilovic, who opposes Patrushev and Sechin, and who speaks about the need for reconciliation, about a pause in the so-called war. This means that the hawks have set their sights on those so-called peacemakers. And now there's going to be a major showdown. At least half of the Russian elite will definitely die off in the near future, and there will be major bloody showdowns. And Putin will kill, throw people out of windows, imprison, whatever you can imagine. He's going to do it now. And this Kemezov clan, I think these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this kind of mini Mutinya public humiliation of Putin and were directly protected by Rothenberg and Kemezov, whose transport revenue streams were seized today and transferred to the Kovalchuks and specifically directly to Putin, right? Pocketing all that money from the Russian Ministry of Transport. I think a massive purge is about to begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is now under threat. And now, attention, the question is, who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin factions. Now, a blow will come from them. Now, the other side will strike back. In other words, we'll find out who will be left standing in the end. I think Putin is now going to use absolutely repressive methods. The entire repressive apparatus, the whole Lubyanka, all the security forces will be assigned to a different task, but who will stand against him? I suspect that there will now be very large-scale purges. It will be a real bloodbath in Moscow near the Kremlin. Will the entire Kremlin be turned upside down? I don't know, Dasha. Whether we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow, that Putin has lost communication, that the Kremlin is cut off from power and surrounded, and that a military junta has seized power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be massive purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath because the board has been flipped over because Putin has done something that no one has done since the days of Stalin. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalinot to destroy your own, not to destroy your own. Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these very people don't stop him now, don't neutralize him, don't dispose of him, and don't eliminate him however it may be, whether they send him off to a dacha, seal him up in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or remove him, whatever it takes. If they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now, let's watch Russia closely. There will be major showdowns. There are big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, there was a very interesting story when for 3 days in a row we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones. After that, Russian war correspondents wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike of 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system Pantsir had started attacking a civilian airplane. This information hasn't been confirmed, but it appeared, and they're jamming communications, jamming the internet. And here's the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow and St. Petersburg? And could they shoot down their own plane? And why are they jamming communications? And could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist attacks orchestrated by Putin himself or the FSB?
Their jamming communications pose well. Everyone thinks they're fighting against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones, this way. In reality, they are jamming communications so that all of Moscow and all the big cities don't know or see anything at all. That's just another thing they do. Obviously, this jamming doesn't really help them much. That's the first point. Now, the second point, as for this particular strike, we've talked about this before, Dasha, about the Belarusian passenger plane. By the way, we've discussed for a long time the fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security services, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others are preparing a series of large-scale terrorist attacks in Moscow. This signal, for example, when a drone crashed near Vnukovo, in a yard close to the Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and the carpet plan was in effect, they weren't allowed to leave the airport, not even the premises. That is not just the terminals, but the entire premises. So what we're saying is that, yes, a terrorist attack is most likely being prepared, probably targeting airports. Most likely, all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, Pulkovo, they are under significant threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy a passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. They destroyed the Azerbaijani plane and tried to pin it on someone else. It didn't work. Now they try to pin it on the Belarusian plane. It didn't work either. They're preparing some kind of series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, like when their missile defense falls on some airport, taking the lives of thousands of people. All this is to pin everything on Ukraine, to escalate the war, to intensify the situation, to force everything and cancel contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription-based, unpaid mode. There's no reason to pay the cannon fodder anymore, as they've already calculated in the Kremlin. They really don't have any money. They don't have money for the war in its current form or for defense until the end of this year. Next comes the choice. Either give money to their own people or send these people as cannon fodder for free, risking their own regime, but still making sure to pay their security forces. Because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security forces. That's the second point. Third, when he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? But in fact, this is a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day, and for no apparent reason, Russian air defense forces could suddenly launch an anti-missile strike, especially in Belarus, not just at a Belarusian plane, but at the plane of the head of state, at Lukashenko himself. Lukashenko doesn't want to directly fly, doesn't want to directly help Putin in the war. Well, what does it mean to help? To openly enter the war. He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic state. Yes, he does send Putin's German drones through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to take risks because he understands that as soon as Putin starts some kind of war, with his help, Lukashenko will be ousted. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help them. He won't have time to escape to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately.
Mm.
That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like this. Recently, we discussed a very strange, a rather odd coincidence, right? When the Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader, Ilham Aliyev, was taking off. Now, there's another interesting situation on a Belarusian plane. So is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Basically, is it a signal saying you have a plane too, I can shoot it down, so are you going to join me in the war or not? This is really interesting. Moreover, I thought that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, whose situation is unclear, whether he was poisoned or just got sick, just like that, yes. Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, yes, his ribs broken, and was sent to Africa. Then his wife barely managed to save him from the basements. And so on down the list, General Spartak. All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin case, all of them have been disposed of in one way or another. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Surovikin, and I think he's next, or General Gerasimov is next. One of them will be executed publicly in the near future. But all those people who were involved in the Prigozhin case in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, they have all been disposed of, neutralized in one way or another. Only Lukashenko remains. I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko. And this is not beneficial for Ukraine right now, because this is exactly where Ukraine does not need Putin to install his own official Gauleiter in Belarus. Some lieutenant colonel or colonel, another Chekist, who would then directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is something nobody needs, not Ukraine, Europe, NATO, or America. It's not for nothing, not by chance, that Kellogg visited Belarus and held talks with Lukashenko. Apparently, they are trying to dissuade Lukashenko from aligning with Vladimir Putin and China. And finally, regarding drones. Everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is actually the most important news of the week.
Yes.
The US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, appeared. He recorded a video. The video was widely circulated. Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
I saw it, yes.
You saw it, right? Everyone was laughing. But the most important thing wasn't what was shown, but what he actually said. So, what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The US is a drone superpower. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important point. For the US, small drones are now considered munitions, just ordinary ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used, replenished, and, so to speak, no. They are not considered a separate type of weapon. In other words, they can be written off without any problem. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make or how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? That Ukraine will eventually receive millions of these drones. Millions. And so, as you asked, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is receiving artillery shell. In fact, South Korea just recently reported, yes, that North Korea has already sent Putin 12 million, I believe, artillery shells. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region, or I think it may have already been built, to produce drones. Thousands of drones, right? So right now, there is no other option except to send these drones to Ukraine, to make it the most powerful drone country in America, and to give Ukraine the opportunity to test American modern new technologies on Russia. So I think Ukraine will get everything it needs, not only long-range missiles, but also drones. And Moscow, of course, will be ablaze, both Moscow and all other key centers, including decision-making centers.
Dear audience, top analyst Dasha Demchenko and I work twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Let us know in the comments what you think about our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Dmitry Golden's YouTube channel where Oleksandr Demchenko appears, and write in the comments what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic that I would like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US is no longer restricting strikes, and that Germany has officially confirmed that starting in July, Ukraine will receive long-range missiles capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and depots on Russian territory. Now, for example, an oil refinery in the Krasnodar region has been blown up. The Kachmau gas pipeline, the Black Sea and Pacific fleets have been attacked, and the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this and now Ukraine is gaining the advantage, what do you say?
I think the board has been flipped when
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The Chancellor of Germany says that the time for diplomacy is over. This means that they have bet on war. They're ready to fight. That is for the first time in the last 6 months, or I would say in the last 3.5 years. Because for 3.5 years, the bet was on containing Russia. They thought they could come to an agreement with Putin, persuade him, appease him, and conduct some parallel negotiations. There were various iterations. Biden had his own approach, Trump had his own, each had their own format. The Europeans, it's unclear what they were thinking all this time, but now the bet has been placed on war. They are ready to encircle Putin, to twist him up like a ball, right? That's why things are going to get very tough for Putin now. And it's not for nothing that Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's not for nothing that they had 2 conversations on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. It's not for nothing that Putin has minimized strikes on Ukraine. So we're seeing a completely different reaction now. Well, that's because everyone is fed up with Putin. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with wet underwear, you should expect that tons of urine will be poured right back in your face. That's all there is to it. That's what we've just witnessed. And that's what we're going to see in the near future. No one is going to stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, that was the only Russian aircraft carrier. And it was under repair for an absurdly long number of years. And in Russia, they honestly admitted, we are not capable of repairing it. Why can't they repair it? Here's the question. No spare parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers all eaten up by sanctions, and most notably, no money. There's no money for these insanely expensive aircraft carriers. But what about those plans to build several aircraft carrier groups to catch up with America? And what about all those talks that China is supposedly overtaking us? Let's go ahead and get ourselves some carrier groups. There will be no more carrier groups in Russia, and there will be no more aircraft carriers in Russia. You'll be fighting with barges. That's it. You'll be hauling watermelons on those barges. There will be nothing else. Nothing. Everything is being scrapped. Everything is being scrapped. Yes. If it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have long since fallen to its knees and begged for mercy. Well, maybe not for mercy, but in any case, to be serious, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping. The North Koreans are helping. Iran isn't helping as much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's words are worth, as he now brazenly wants to take Iran's nuclear technology and transfer it to himself. That's what kind of peacemaker he is. How about we give Iran another Budapest memorandum, this time carried out by Putin? You see, we'll take the nuclear technology, move it to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so you can have another red button, or so that red button gets even bigger. But whatever the case, Dasha, all of this shows that Putin doesn't have any money. There's already a 4 trillion hole in the budget. They say that if Trump imposes sanctions, the hole will be 7.5 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has $1 trillion in debt. It's bankrupt. All of Russia's key enterprises are bankrupt. Every 3rd car dealer in Russia is out of business. 1/3 of taxi drivers in Russia are already out of work. The mortgage market has dropped exactly threefold. Putin has devoured $350 billion, already 15% of his economy. Hellish sanctions will take out 30 to 40% of his economy. Oil production in Russia has fallen by 30 to 35%. There's no revenue in the budget. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money, but he still needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? It means, first of all, he will start cutting. He won't give out money. He won't pay his cannon fodder, first of all. Second, it means that Vladimir Putin will simply reshuffle his entire inner circle, shake up the top ranks, and redistribute the financial flows to his own family and close associates, taking these flows away from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and took away his Ural gold mining enterprise. They're already seizing gold. They're already taking over agriculture. What are we talking about here? Putin doesn't have any money. He has to find this money somewhere. He needs to get this money from somewhere. And he's going to take this money from the Russian people. That's all there is to it. So this whole mess will be over soon. If Trump, not just in words, but in action, puts Putin in a really tough spot, the war will end soon. Right now, Trump has the power to change everything and turn the board over. I hope the board will be completely turned over. And right now, Putin is very frightened. He finally realized that he went too far and that it was a mistake.
Sasha, I want us to spend the last 5 to 8 minutes talking about Trump as well. But before that, there's an important topic, the Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge, occupied Crimea. This is very important, considering that now the Germans will provide you, as I understand that with German money, we have produced our own weapons and so on, and they will be ready by the end of this month. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will it be the Taurus missiles, Storm Shadow, or the long-range Neptunes? And will we damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kerch or Crimean Bridge is inevitable. Anything that is unsightly, that doesn't fit into the architectural design that was built in the Stalinist era, must be destroyed and will be destroyed. Do you understand, Dasha? Here's the situation. There is no other option but to drive out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases, and Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes that Crimea is under threat, this regime will immediately collapse. Everyone is well aware of this. Yes, so when he is now transferring weapons, anti-missile and anti-aircraft systems and so on, from the Donbas which he and his criminal troops have occupied to the territory of the Crimean Peninsula, he is demonstrating to everyone, first of all, that he is short on weapons. Second, that for him, Crimea is the most important if we consider all the occupied Ukrainian territories aside from all of Ukraine, of course. But as the British have already written, he would have to wait 99 or 100 years for that, and he won't live that long. That's obvious. I think his family will poison him with those pills. They'll just keep him alive. Next, you see, this also shows that he doesn't care at all about the occupied territories or any of those people. He's willing to sacrifice those people in Donbas and elsewhere in all the occupied territories of Ukraine just to keep Crimea. And a strike on Crimea, a strike on that bridge, these are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall. The bridge will be destroyed. Malyuk is already sitting there. Last time, he calculated, we discussed this, with U-200, 4,200, right? 4,200 of explosive. Well, fine, they calculated it, 4,200 didn't work. So it will be 10,000 tons. That's all there is to it. They all already have plans over there. None of this is happening by accident. Have you noticed that not a single Western representative from Washington to Brussels to London has said anything about the Crimean Bridge, the explosions, the strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone is in agreement about everything. There are no more prohibitions. All restrictions have been lifted. There will be strikes, and German missiles, and French missiles, and British missiles, and American missiles. Everything will be used. They'll target the occupied territories, the Kerch Bridge, and even Moscow. Everything, every place where decisions are made, every place strikes are launched from will be burned. There is no other option. None. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. Russian officials and Russian citizens need to understand that Vladimir Putin is the cause of it all. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. There's no more romance, no more honeymoon, or whatever you want to call it. It's over. The bride has left. For Putin, this is where it all ends.
So the question is, who is in the bride in this tandem? Sasha, let's figure it out, Trump or Putin?
No, well, for a long time, Trump acted like the bride, but then apparently he decided to switch roles a bit. Now, yes, now Putin is the one out of control, not the bride, you see? As for Trump, continuing this story, look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we're already seeing it in action. The green light has been given. All obstacles have been completely removed. Missiles are on their way. Drones will follow. And not just a few, this means millions of drones. Dozens of missiles, hundreds of missiles will be launched. and there will be strikes. This is already inevitable. This is already a given. It doesn't matter how Trump will use the money will go. Patriots will go. Shells, ammunition, missiles, and weapons will go. Everything will go. There are no more illusions in Washington regarding Vladimir Putin. There are no illusions that Vladimir Putin might agree to peace. He will be forced, and most likely forced this year, maybe even sooner than we can imagine.
Sasha, analyzing this, it's a very important topic that for the first time since taking office, Trump is considering the possibility of allocating new funding for Ukraine, according to CBS News. That's $3.85 billion. Moreover, as you mentioned at the very beginning, Trump may allocate $5 billion to Ukraine from frozen Russian assets.
Sanctions will be adopted with Trump's amendments directly. Trump will have in his hands the tools and mechanisms with which he can put pressure on China, India, and a number of other countries that purchase from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black market schemes and the transfer of dual-use goods, both military and civilian, into Russia and so on. In other words, these flows will be shut down, the shadow fund will be closed. For the most part, it will be closed. And I suspect that they'll slightly open the taps in America and Saudi Arabia, and they'll deliberately crash the price of oil. What's also very important, Dasha, so that's regarding the sanctions. There will be sanctions. There's no need to worry here. There will be sanctions. Trump will have the authority, Congress will approve everything, and so on. There will be sanctions. And as for weapons systems, we need to understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. That was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He had already tried. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times. Nothing worked out. He offered to meet with Putin. Nothing worked out. He sent envoys to Putin, including official representatives, the Secretary of State, and at that time also the head of his Security Council and his intelligence officers. He sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked out. Nothing. When we now discuss the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, because Trump, in parallel to this Biden's package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine from his own side. He is sending one Patriot system himself. Norway and Germany, after coordinating with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weapon. This is the kind of weapon that recently saved Israel and will save Israel more than once in the future. So, Dasha, we are talking about a very important component right now. Donald Trump, the president of America, has crossed the red line for himself. He has crossed the Rubicon. We are talking about the fact that for the first time, Trump began to provide Ukraine with very expensive weapon systems, very costly weaponry. This is just the beginning, and it is extremely important. In other words, this step has been taken. From now on, he will not turn back from this path. And this will directly affect the entire war. The course of hostilities, not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, to sum up, the boat has been flipped. Now everything is in Trump's hands. But there's another very important point. No one is going to play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say, stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin.
And we're getting closer to it. Brilliant analysis from Oleksandr Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week on my YouTube channel, Dasha Shaslivaya. That's on Tuesdays and Sundays. On Dmytro Gordon's YouTube channel, it's Wednesdays and Mondays. So watch us, give us a like, and write a few kind words about our tandem. It's very important. We work for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you very much and see you this Tuesday.
See you next time. Bye.